6 300 strikeout seasons. As I said earlier, he tied with Nolan Ryan for the most in Major League Baseball history. And, oh, by the way, he threw a perfect game along the way. So those are the top 10. Oh, but look, honorable mention, I got to bring up. There were 26 other players who have been elected while receiving at least 90% of the potential votes. Greg Maddux, 97.2%. Chipper Jones, 97.2%. Mike Schmidt, 96.5%. Johnny Bench, 96.4%. Steve Carlton, 95.6%. And these next four, come on. So that would have put Maddux at 11, Chipper at 12, Schmidt at 13, Bench at 14, Carlton at 16, and the next person, I think you've heard of him, born in 1895, George Herman Ruth. Only named on 95.1% of the ballots. Okay, let's stop right here a minute. If Babe Ruth, whose name is interchangeable with baseball, could only be named on 95.1% of the ballots, don't we, instead of heralding, and now look, I'm not knocking Rivera, probably greatest closer in the history of the game. Babe Ruth, well, in my opinion, he was the game. So, congratulations to Rivera last year, but I think what's more significant here is to revamp something. I mean, Babe Ruth should have been, the Hall of Fame could have been named after Babe Ruth. The Babe Ruth Hall of Fame, the Babe Ruth Baseball Museum Hall of Fame. I don't know what you want to call it, but are you kidding me? And he didn't get as many votes as some of these other guys. Okay, who's bigger in baseball, Babe Ruth or Greg Maddux? Babe Ruth or Chipper Jones? Babe Ruth or Mike Schmidt? Babe Ruth or Steve Carlton? Babe Ruth or anybody? The fact that somebody is unanimous, yeah, that's a good thing, but it just shows the ludicrousy of the voting system. Oh, and it gets better. Well, not better, but there are three more right after Ruth. Ruth at 95.1, then another guy at 95.1. His name's Honus Wagner. A guy at 94.8%, Ricky Henderson. And how about a guy at 94.7%? Say hey. Say hey. Say what? Willie Mays? Like 20th on this list? Willie Mays? So I put Willie Mays and Babe Ruth in that same category, and for them not to be unanimous picks. And now we're talking about Jeter. And I love Derek Jeter. Don't get me wrong, I'm a Yankee guy. But Jeter doesn't deserve to be unanimous if Babe Ruth and Willie Mays weren't. Or, better yet, if Jeter is unanimous, certainly Mays and Ruth should have been. What's interesting in this voting, and there are others on this list, Bob Feller, Reggie Jackson, Ted Williams, 93.4%, Stan the Man, 93.2%, Roberto Clemente, 92.7%, Christy Mathewson, 90.7%. Are you kidding me? So, my point being with this Hall of Fame voting, isn't there a better way than letting 400 who may consist of sports writers? I don't really know all that consists of. But isn't there a better way to elect and vote on who is in our National Pastime Hall of Fame? Take out personal preferences. You take a diehard Yankee fan or a diehard Red Sox fan who's got some, I don't like a certain player, I'm not going to vote for him ever. That's not the way you do it, guys. This is not who's my favorite team. This is one of those who deserves the recognition. And I will tell you, as a Yankee fan, great respect for Red Sox players. Big Papi, I think he should go into the Hall. Pedro, certainly. I mean, dominated on the mound. Of course, he is already in the Hall, But Big Papi should go in too. Other Red Sox. It's not that I don't like the Red Sox Hall of Fame. It's that I recognize the greatness of a player. And so I think too much emphasis is placed on unanimous votes. I think too much emphasis is placed on those possibly, or not enough emphasis placed on those who didn't. I think it's a crying shame that Willie Mays and Babe Ruth and others were not unanimous picks. Maybe what this is showing last year with Rivera going in unanimously is that there are more level-headed people now voting. Jeter should be unanimous. Okay? He should be. But based on what has happened in the past, then we owe an apology to some of the greats who ever played the game. We certainly do. So that's my little tirade on the Hall of Fame. 6 o'clock tonight, we'll find out who's in, who's not. I expect Larry Walker to go in. I expect Derek Jeter to go in. We'll see about others. I was reading something over the weekend that Derek Jeter may be underrated. I don't think that's the case. I don't think there's any way of looking at Derek Jeter as a possible underrated player. So who else is on the ballot? You got Curt Schilling in his 8th year. You've got Roger Clemens in his 8th year. You got Barry Bonds in his 8th year. Omar Vizquel in his 3rd. I'll stop it right there. Last year, Schilling 60.9%, Clemens 59.5%, Bonds 59.1%, Walker 54.6%, Vizquel 42.8%. Clemens and Bonds always going to have the cloud of did they or didn't they, and should they get in or not. If you look at numbers, Bonds and Clemens have got to be in the Hall of Fame. They've got to be. And, when you look at the current events of what's going on, there's so many levels of judgment out there that the public can pass on people. Everybody's got their opinion on the current state of affairs. Was it enough of a punishment? Was it not enough of a punishment? Everyone can have their opinion on Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds. But barring some proof, I'm going to take the position Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens should be in the Hall of Fame. Let's assume for a moment that Altuve continues to put up numbers that he has put up. He has a 15 to 20 year career. Let's say Bregman does the same. They would certainly be Hall of Fame qualified. The doubts cast on them now, will that keep them out of the Hall of Fame? Should it? I think you look at the numbers. I think you look at what you can substantially prove or not. I think Roger Clemens, I think Barry Bonds should both be in the Hall of Fame. If it's me this year, they go in, Larry Walker goes in, and of course, Derek Sanderson Jeter. Those are my four. If I had a vote, I would be voting for entry into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to watch at 6 o'clock tonight to see what happens. Because, it's what it is. Now, one thing I do want to talk about before I close the show today is Mookie Betts. I was reading over yesterday, getting ready for this show, that Shane Bloom, Chief Baseball Officer for the Red Sox, is still exploring trades for Betts. And one of the things I read was that any deal for Mookie Betts must also include David Price, with the acquiring team taking on most or all of the $96 million still owed to Price over the next 3 years. And the Red Sox are also asking in return for two high-end prospects. Owner John Henry said at the end of last year, the Red Sox want to get under the $208 million competitive balance tax to reset their penalty rate, which continues the discussion that Betts will be traded. The 27-year-old just signed to an arbitration-ending deal of $27 million. He will be a free agent after this year. The Red Sox have to balance out, of course, being competitive and saving money, but we know it's a business. And how many of you think Mookie Betts will be a Red Sox at season's end? Not trading him in the next week, not trading him by the first game of the year, but do you think by the trade deadline, Mookie Betts is out of Boston? And the problem with David Price, I don't want him. I don't want him on fantasy. I don't want him on reality. He's hurt every year. It seems to me like, in retrospect, every year the last 3 years, he's been hurt for some reason. Whether it's an elbow or whatever. And as he gets older, why would I think that the injuries would become less? Boston's looking to dump money. The key to this is Mookie Betts. And are you willing, as a trade partner, to take the risk on David Price while you're getting one of the best players in the game? Certainly, I think you talk about top 10 in Major League Baseball. Mookie Betts undoubtedly is in the top 10. Is he a top 5 player? I don't know. But I think he's certainly a top 10. And I think there is a team that will take a chance on a player of that caliber. The question is, who will it be? And there's some teams who are out. I mean, I don't see ever the Red Sox trading with the Yankees. Wow. I mean, that would be a blockbuster, right? I don't see it happening. But that's the latest report out of Boston. So let's keep our eye on the Mookie Betts as the world turns. I think they trade him. I don't think Boston has the pitching to contend. I think they're the third best team. And here's a shocker. If players perform, I think they could be the fourth in the American League East. Now, there are a lot of factors going on there. Is Sale healthy? Is Price healthy? There are so many ifs, and there's a bullpen issue. Now, they've got tremendous bats. Rafael Devers, wow. JD Martinez, wow. Benintendi needs a comeback season. So does Betts. Betts was down last year. I think they trade him.